Hello everybody, it's Fiona Hooper here again, and it's another edition, another instalment of The Poetry of Painting, my live weekly show about art and poetry and anything that comes up when I'm talking with my guests. And this week, it's a real pleasure to welcome back to the show the lovely and very brave poet, Roz Ottery. So let me just bring Roz on and welcome, Roz.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to have you back. I hope you're keeping well.
Very well, yes. I've just had a major birthday.
Ooh, 30, I guess. So, well, very best wishes belated best wishes for your birthday, Roz. I'm sure we'll all be sending you best wishes for that. And just a comment to everybody, if you're watching, please feel free to add some comments, ask us questions, join in, and thanks for watching, whether you're watching live or on replay. It'd be great to have you along. So thank you very much. So this week, before we get on to the general chat, we are going to talk about another of my paintings, and this one is called Country Lane, which is just behind me here, and I'll put it up on the screen in a moment. It's in oils and it's 10 by 12 inches. So let me just put that one up. There we are, put it up on the screen, which makes it a lot easier to see than just in the background. So I'm really excited and waiting to hear Roz's poem about Country Lane. So Roz, would you mind reading that for us now?
Yeah. Before I read this to you, I want to tell you why I wanted to write a poem about this picture, because there's a quote which I heard when I was at college years ago, and it was Maria Callas, and what she actually said was that art is a domination of sorts, because it makes people believe. The quote is about is this isn't probably not in quote marks, but this is what she said. It makes people believe that for a precise moment in time, there is only one way to see something, or one voice to hear something, and that voice is the artist's. And so the thing that drew me into this, it's got a road on it, and it drew me in, and it made me think of the fact that this one moment in time has been captured and frozen here. And that immediately sparked some interest and some thoughts about the way the colours all drew you into the picture. So this is a poem about a moment, or the moment, and what could perhaps be other moments. A moment in time is unique, essentially. So this is Country Lane. Each road leads onwards towards a new horizon, and none may guess the journey or gauge the heavy load. The current curves and bumps are challenges for every traveller, for only one pair of feet can travel on this whole road. Here, pleasant English fields surrounding a small hamlet, the single pale warm day helps steps to be light and pure. So pleasant in cool shades of this one moment, so palatable the silence, sweet and pure. What will the next turn bring? What challenge waiting? This fluidity of life, this captured scene, for every turn is a new adventure for each pilgrim, and each age has changed this picture that has been. For once, maybe, here land girls toiled to feed a country, while Messerschmitts flew past, the sky to streak. For those that walked this road in the landscape of the war years, there's other seeds that would manifest and speak. So capture now this scene in autumn cream and orange, resplendent moment nature and peace blend. Feed tranquility to eyes that know what's given. Dwell a while before our own sad story ends.
Wow, that's beautiful. I just love that I can feel myself traveling down that road, and that it's just so evocative. There's so many emotions and images.
I thought the painting just lent itself. It just pulled you in, the way that road just pulls you in and curves. You just don't know what's round that bend and who has been there and what feet have walked that road. It fascinated me.
Yes,
And I
yes.
really, really enjoyed this painting.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for writing such a beautiful poem about it. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. I love that, how it made your steps light and pure and beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. I shall read my poem now then. Not, well, I'll let you make up your own minds about it, obviously. So Country Lane, based on my painting, obviously, and what it says to me. So, nestled in the valley below the moors, this peaceful and bucolic scene awaits, a view unchanged for decades past, where time passes at a slower rate. Shadows rake across the lane, fording the grass and climbing the hedge, striping the surface with light and shade, changing course as they meet each edge. The lowing of cattle ready for milking, and the songs of skylarks overhead, the distant bleat of sheep on the moors, tell tales of the life that lies ahead. The farm has seen many generations, the custodians of this beautiful land, knowledge passed from father to son, methods old and new at their command. The hedgerows were a haven for wildlife, the moors home to grouse and heather. Let's not forget how fragile is this land. We need to preserve and protect it forever. That's my one. So similar in a way, about, because it also spoke to me about times gone by and how it's the sort of landscape that you can imagine that it's been like that for decades or centuries even.
Yeah.
So it's just
I think
apart from
that's
the
what I meant. It's definitely got that feel of timelessness, and a moment could be this could be, early 1900s, couldn't it? Or it could be now. But on top of that, if it's the war, for instance, which is what I was imagining, probably those fields would be ploughed, but it would still have that one moment in time sort of almost captured in that stillness. And I think your poem says the same thing, which is very interesting, really.
Yes, because like Norma, we didn't discuss the painting beforehand at all. So it's interesting that we've both come to the same sort of impression of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange, really, because there are some paintings in which they're beautiful, and you want to describe the beauty, and you want to do that in with words as a poet. But a lot of your poems, I feel very often go sort of even under that as well. It's not just what you've painted, it's what that picture evokes. And I think that there's quite a lot of emotional content in a lot of these pictures. I find that whereas in some places I would just be writing a picture of nature in my words, this always has there's other little bits to it that make me just think deeper about it, really.
Like the Blustery Day poem that you wrote, that was amazing. That was just, you'd seen so much more in that painting than is in paint on the canvas. you know, so many people may not have seen that, and you know, just absolutely fascinating. And the same with this one, you know, it's seeing it and a whole story opening up about it. Just brilliant.
I think that a painting has always, for me, it's always transferred and made it to the looker and the viewer. If it doesn't look like a painting, it looks like the scene, and therefore you're drawn into it. And that's what I always do, really. Well, they do for me. So
good. Well, thank you so much. That's such a big compliment about my paintings. Thank you. Just wow. So well, I said at the start, Roz, when I introduced you, that you're very brave, and to me you are exceedingly brave for what you did, even though you play it down a bit. But do you want to tell us a little bit about that, because I'm just in awe.
well, what's just occurred is that I've had this birthday, which is I'm actually 70. It was my 70th, and I've had parties, loads of parties, and I didn't want a party. I didn't want just to have a drink or a meal or any of those things. I wanted to do something that creates memory, because there's a certain point that you realize that that's the treasure is in the relationship that you have around you and the memories you can create. So that's what I wanted to do. So what I decided to do was have an adventure. I do like an adventure, at least once a year. So I volunteered for the air ambulance to do an abseil down their very tall London hospital. I think it's 19 floors. It's very high. It's like a skyscraper, really, and it's all glass. And so there was a target to meet for donation. So I got myself involved in getting donations and managed the target. And on Saturday, I abseiled down the building. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. In fact, in a way, it wasn't high enough for me. I like challenge, so that's what I did.
19 floors. That's about 18 more than I would have. I wouldn't even be happy with that. But, I'm not a heights person.
It was a fabulous view of London. Very beautiful out there. Really was. And we had to walk across the helipad where the helicopter, which of course, because it's a helicopter flying, there's no barriers, no fence across it. I really enjoyed it. It was enjoyable, very enjoyable.
Well, I love going in planes. I've even jumped out of a plane. Oh, Rosie's just joined us. Welcome, Rosie. Great to have you on board. I've done a parachute jump. I was fine with that, because I think it's when I'm on a building and it's connected to the land, that's when I can relate to it. But when I did the jump, it was different somehow. And I've been gliding. I haven't been up in a helicopter, but put me up on a tall ladder, and no, I don't do very well, which is a bit crazy.
You're very well roped up with abseiling. That it is safe. As safe as it can be. But there is a moment that most people find difficult, and that is when you have to stand with your feet on the corner of the building and lean backwards, because you have to get away from the building. You have to walk down it, really.
Yes.
And most people did find that quite challenging, but I just find it exciting, and it feeds me. Because as a poet, just as any artist, really, all the experiences that you have go into everything that you do, and I think that those more extreme times when you're on your mettle actually helps keep you vibrant, keeps you sort of flowing, really.
Yes, keeps you alive.
It does,
yeah. But, no, I think I would have felt absolutely fantastic if I'd have managed to do it. I would have just been totally elated. But the idea of going over the edge of the building, yeah, okay. Rosie says that never cease to amaze her, but she can do ladders. So, I can do a step ladder, Rosie. I just can't do, like, go up a couple of stories. No, it's not good, not good. And years ago, I went to Cologne, and I went into Cologne Cathedral and had a look round. And up on the top of, I think it's got 2 towers, if I remember rightly. And up on the top of one of them, it's got steps where you can go even higher.
I've been to Cologne Cathedral. I know where you mean.
Up there, because the steps on the top are just open steps, and although they had some railings around, you're already really quite high up, and then these open steps, and I thought, no, that's just a little bit too and I just couldn't. If I'd have had someone with me that I knew, I may have done it, but I was on my own at that point, and I just thought, no, sorry, no, I can see the city beautifully from where I am. That's fine.
It is very high. It is very high.
Yeah, but
it's a very beautiful place, Cologne Cathedral.
Yes, it was. It was quite a long time ago now, but I did enjoy it. It was lovely. Yeah.
The thing I've most enjoyed doing is I did wing walking a couple of years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was strapped to a biplane, and the pilot said, I mean, I do like things like this. So the pilot said to me, put your hand up if you want me to go down and stop. And I made sure that did not happen, because because he knew I liked it. He did do some big dips and fly very close to the ground and then shoot back up and do some loops. It was great. I loved it. But it's very expensive. So couldn't really do it.
And I've been to Disney and places in the past, and I love those rides where you go up and twist and down and everything.
If you like those rides, you probably like wing walking.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest roller coaster ever.
Is it?
Yeah, except you're standing up on the top of the plane.
But you're securely strapped on anyway, aren't you?
I mean, it's a rigid structure. It's not like the Busby Berkeley sort of stuff of yesteryear, when in the 20s they would only have a leather strap and they would dance on the top of the plane. Although if it was, I'd have a go, but scary stuff. It's all grist in the mill.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what else has been going on in your world at the moment, Roz? You've got a project. I don't know if you can tell us much about your project at the moment.
I've taken on our grandson, so he lives with us, and that is I'm busy being a mum again at the moment. So that's it's almost takes up all my time. But in between, Yvonne Ugarte and I have a project in the can, which we're looking at the moment, which is essentially something to do with trying to get a book together for poetry about the environment. We both write poetry, environmental poetry. In fact, that's where we met. We were doing the tour of women poets for the environment. But we are hoping to. We've got a little twist which I don't want to tell you about at the moment, because obviously it would be unique to us, and I think it will probably help the book to be published. But we've got a little bit of a twist with how we're going to do it, and we're very excited because we both enjoy each other's poetry, and we're good friends too. So
yes, well, I love Yvonne's poetry as well. She's been a guest on the show as well, which is amazing.
She's a very very funny lady, is Yvonne.
Yeah, she's lovely, really lovely. So yeah. So is there much going on in the poetry world at the moment with events and things?
There's always open mic nights and always things, competitions or whatever, the national poetry competitions coming up, all of those things. And I think that most poets have a go here and there and try and do the best they can. The difficulty is with the open mic nights for me, I only started to show my poetry about 2.5 years ago. And it still floors me. I can walk off a building and I can jump on a plane and be looped up and down, but it's really hard for me to show some of the poetry that I have, which is close to my heart. I enjoy poetry, writing poetry and speaking poetry that is a bit like painting, as I say, with words. But there's poetry that I have written from way back. I started writing poetry when I was 7 years old. Now some of that obviously is not appropriate, but as I got older, there are several poems which I probably wouldn't mind in a book, but to say it out loud, very difficult. So I'm still learning to trust myself and be upfront about some of the fears that I have, because we're all vulnerable and we all have these fears, but of course everybody pretends they don't. But so that's always a challenge for me with open mic nights, but I'm learning, I'm doing it, and if I see one now, I will do it, whereas before I think maybe.
I think that's very similar to art as well, especially, for an artist who's starting out, showing their work, putting it in an exhibition, and having everybody looking at it. And, I don't think people generally do judge paintings. They go and they look at them, they're interested, they want to appreciate them, try and understand them, or, I don't think people really judge your work as we probably feel that they do.
I think the biggest critic can be yourself, isn't it?
That's absolutely. Yes. But hopefully, well, for you with your poems, hopefully it'll be, it'll get easier over time, and certainly it's
definitely getting easier, Fiona, definitely. Yeah. Because I've had some really good response, and that's lovely, and that makes you think, okay, well, in that case, it's worth trying this piece. So I'm getting braver. And there's one or two of the open mic nights that I have been asked to do guests on, and as a guest poet, I've been much braver than on an open mic night.
Right. So it's a whole different.
Yeah, they're different, because guest poet, you get 20-minute slot, which is specifically you, and people come to the night to see you.
Wow.
But excellent. With an open mic night, it's you. There are other guest poets, and you just slot in as whenever you can, really, and that's a bit scary.
Yes, because if it's you as a guest, I guess you can then develop a theme or a progression of poems.
And you've got the added knowledge that they've asked you, whereas an open mic night, nobody asks you, just turn up.
Yes. When you're invited, it gives you a whole different level of confidence. Absolutely. Yes, yeah. It's like, Chris has just joined us as well. Yes, going to do a demonstration, for example. I did one last week, and it was so good to get back in front of a live audience, and they were a super group of people, thoroughly enjoyed it, and they've invited me there because, well, I've been to the group before a couple of times, and to know that they want to see you again is such an honor and a confidence booster, So
yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely. I don't know many artists that haven't got a soft soul.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to have a sensitivity. Yes. To be able to feel your way into art. Well, I suppose that's perhaps my thinking. Maybe other people don't think that, but
I think so.
Therefore, I do think that vulnerability is very close to the surface, whereas with other people, perhaps it's not quite as much.
Yes, absolutely. I think as a whole, artists do tend to be a bit more sensitive. So, Chris says he loves the painting, a real feeling of light. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. Great to have you with us. And I say to anybody else who's listening, great to have you along. Thanks for listening in. Do feel free to make some comments or ask questions. So what's next on the agenda, Roz?
Well, as I said, the potential of the book is taking up most of our sort of time at the moment. And I think that because my days are filled with doing, sometimes it's hard to get that moment where you can create more. But there have been a couple of times recently when, for instance, when we went down to do the abseil, I was sort of we stayed out of the house, and that gave me a little bit of time and a little bit of sort of peace to create. And so I've done a few new poems which I'm quite excited about, which a couple of them may well go in the book if it comes off. So
lovely. Excellent. Well, I've been working on some portraits, and I've still got a couple to do. Been trying to fit in some landscapes as well, and I've also got my most unusual commission that I'm doing at the moment as well, in amongst the portraits. While the portraits are drying, then I can work on this other one, and it's actually working on some lettering. Lettering that's been carved into a piece of stone. Wow. And it's actually, I think it probably had been painted before, the letters, but the paint's long gone. It's actually a headstone. So I think this is definitely my most unusual piece of commissioned art work that I've done. But it's actually quite therapeutic. I can understand why people really enjoy colouring books, you know, adults as well, because it is therapeutic. You can just lose yourself in it, and you just have some real downtime. And doing these letters, obviously I have to be very careful at the same time, but it's actually being quite therapeutic, just to chill and I won't say not think about it, because I am thinking about the letters, but I'm not having to, you know, think about greater questions, as opposed to, you know, am I doing it accurately, sort of thing. So that's actually quite fun.
I bet it is.
So yeah, that one's really done.
It's quite an unusual, as you say, quite an unusual commission, I would have thought.
It is, yes, and I'm not quite sure how it came to me, but it did. So I'm helping out with that one at the moment. So that's fun.
Yeah. It's surprising, isn't it, really, how things do come. The thing that amazes me more than anything is that you start off on a week and you never know what is going to come your way. You know, I've had weeks that I look at my diary and think, well, there's not much happening this week, and then, you know, halfway through the week, a letter arrives and you've won a competition, or you've done, you know, there's so many things that happen, which I think is absolutely fascinating. Life is just a real exciting journey for me. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and it's certainly never boring, that's for sure. No,
always things going on, and the one thing I would like is more time, because there's so many other things that I want to do as well, and so many paintings that I'm itching to do. But you know, we can't do everything. Just do as much as we can.
You blink and it's gone, and there is no doubt whatsoever that was the motivation for starting to actually show my poems, because, you know, you get on and suddenly you realise that you're aging, and the truth is that if nobody else sees them, to a certain extent, especially even if it's just family, even if it's just people that, you know, that friends that would like a copy of something you've written, it is much better than just they're all under the bed and then get burned at the end of the time, you know, because people clear houses, don't they, and they don't realise the meaning of certain things. So you've either got to be brave or not. And I don't think I'm brave for stepping off a building, but I do think I'm brave for going to my open mic nights and showing my work. That's the biggest bravery.
I think bravery is actually doing something that scares you, which for me would be the abseiling, for sure. And for you, it's the putting your poetry out there. So it's different. You know, bravery is not just doing something that someone else might find difficult. It's doing something that you find difficult. That's,
well, I always say that. I think bravery is not the absence of fear. It's being fearful and going forward.
Absolutely. Feel the fear and do it anyway, as they say.
Absolutely. And that book may have been written years ago, but it's still as good today as it was then. I still recommend that book to people sometimes.
It's a very good book, yes. Yeah, sometime since I read it. Maybe I ought to read it again. So,
yeah, it's a good one.
Rosie says the painting reminds her of a lane in Redbourne. Wasn't actually Redbourne, but you have to send me a photograph and see what it looks like, Rosie. Compare it. That'd be great.
It's a misty quality, hasn't it? That's this painting. It's sort of got a hazy type of quality to it, which I think that's one of the reasons it maybe provokes the imagination.
Yes, sort of one of those sort of languid days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Well, I think we're probably getting to about the end of our time today, Roz. And it's been absolutely, minus the mountains, Rosie says. Right, okay. But we do have some mountains in this one, also. It's been absolutely fantastic having you back on the show, Roz. Really enjoyed it. Always love chatting with you and hearing about your exciting adventures and your poetry and what's happening and your new project as well. So thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully in due course I can put your poem out on social media as well and let people read it. That would be lovely. And of course my book as well. A bit in my book would be a great honour as well. So Chris says it reminds him of the Yorkshire Dales, and Rose is going to go back and listen to the poems. I think you're going to absolutely love Roz's poem, Rosie. It's beautiful. So enjoy that, and thanks for listening, and thanks for going back to listen again. So I'll be back again next week with another fantastic poet at the same time, 7 p.m. UK time next Wednesday, for another instalment of the Poetry of Painting. And if anybody wants to sign up to my newsletter, then please just visit my website at www.fionahooper.com, and then you'll see new paintings before they get put out on social media and invitations to exhibitions. So thanks very much again, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and it's goodbye from myself and goodbye from Roz. Thanks so much. Thanks, Roz. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.